it's busy. Yeah. It's yeah, aside from professional life, I have 4 teenagers. So
Busy
I
mom.
I put on every single hat at the same time, and sometimes they fall off, but most of the time we keep the rhythm going.
Yeah. Thanks for doing this. I mean, you reached out and I was like, holy smokes, there's so many cool people I haven't talked to yet. So this is awesome.
Yeah. Well, and it's, I'm like I said, I'm so passionate about getting the word out there of what I do, but also just educating people on the need and the understanding that there's more support out there than people really actually see and think about. So
And for many people, it's a heartbreaking journey. It's a lonely journey. I don't even know where people would start and where to begin. I mean, you have if people have children, finances, of course, home, COVID, that's another thing, right?
huge. Yeah.
And where do I go? Where do I want to cause more chaos at home if I leave? For
Yeah.
in your life and in your story, um, obviously this is near and dear to your heart. How did this happen? Was it, and where did you learn that, you know what, I might have been alone in certain areas, and that's why I'm doing what I do?
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. It wasn't exactly my lifelong dream to become a divorce coach, but along the way, I've picked up pieces sort of subconsciously, watching when I was younger, watching my parents go through a fairly tumultuous divorce with not a lot of support. I mean, you can get through the nitty gritty details, but in terms of really what I'm talking about, not a lot of support, having to make really emotional decisions, having to face your emotions at that time, and not knowing how to navigate. And we all sort of have that instinct of defense. And then cut to my journey, again, I got married, not thinking I would ever get divorced, and it happened. And at the time, I had 2 small kids, and I really, I really felt I have a huge family, a huge network in Calgary. I'm born and raised in Calgary, professional network, personal network, but I felt so incredibly alone. And, you go to a lawyer, and by all means, lawyers absolutely have a role. But it's a specific one, but we tend to, that's the first turn we make, and really we're looking for the support all wrap around. And I remember, one night feeling totally alone, and I was alone, and I'm putting my little kids to bed, and just not sure what next step to take, and was facing exactly what you said, the financial divorce, the emotional divorce, the grieving process of what I thought was, and I didn't know who to talk to. And your family and friends are so biased, and they can only go so far, right? And they try to be objective, and so it just kind of was in the back of my mind. And then, as I sort of started to recover on my journey, and I started having people come to me and sort of, say, I'm getting divorced. What do I do? I think I want to get divorced. I don't know where to start. I think, my marriage is ending, or my marriage has ended. And I just started thinking about, so there's this huge gap. And my background is communications, relationship management with philanthropy, fundraising, marketing. And I started doing some, my friends would send an email. I want to send this note to my husband to tell him that I think I would like to end the marriage. What do you think of this? And
Oh my
all of a
gosh.
sudden it just started brewing, right? So I started writing, and then my husband now was like, you got to make a business out of this. This is like, you're giving this away for free when you can provide the service. So cut to COVID, I lost my not-for-profit job, and thought, pretty much within the hour of my job, they're closing my office, I said, okay, it's time to jump off both feet. So I did. And I went and got there's a very specialized certification in certified divorce coaching, that has the divorce piece as well as the recovery and the transition piece into what life is going to be like afterwards. So I've built my business along the way while taking that certification, but also building the communications piece, because that's really the key to my business and what I do.
Are you
There's
seeing
a
more?
long-winded story.
Are you seeing more people get divorced through COVID for the past couple of years?
What I am seeing, I think what we're gonna see because of COVID, you can file for divorce later. You have to file a year after separation. And so we're gonna see those numbers. And um, what I would say, what I'm seeing in the divorces that I am seeing are, there's a lot of joke out there about, you're holed up with someone and you realize you don't really want to live with them, or they drive you crazy. And as much as that's kind of, comical and funny and surface, I'm seeing more of people who are really reevaluating themselves, and as they are looking inward at their whole self, and perhaps their spouses as well, realizing that perhaps the marriage isn't really where they want to be. And I think we've seen a lot of that through COVID, where people have really woken up and kind of looked around and realized that there's a certain way they want to live their life. We've been told what we've had to do for the last 20 months, and I think it's given people a lot of platform to evaluate. And that's what I'm seeing more of, I would say, and in a lot of the cases. And for sure, there's no doubt the conflict that can brew when you're in close quarters is part of it. But I would say what I'm seeing more is just that true reevaluation.
No, for sure. It's funny because before the pandemic, we had, or if someone had a significant other, you would just live your life day to day, go to work, come home, kids, go to sleep, repeat. Now, when you're stuck together, you really do see each other, and obviously, with the uncertainty and the fear in the world, everybody's emotions are out of line. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's really interesting to see the dynamics that are happening right now. And I think another thing that's really interesting is to see how couples are spending so much time together. Because I don't think it's anybody's fault in most cases. I think people don't know how to interact with each other this close and go to work at home and all those things. And I'm
Yeah,
sure you're seeing.
everyone's had to shift gears, right? And you've really yeah, you've had to reevaluate your playing field. You've had to level your playing field out completely differently, to your point about going to work and coming home and sort of following the same routine. And I'm not saying that that leads to separation and divorce just because of that. There's been a lot of, albeit there's been horrendous hardship come out of COVID. I've seen families as well sort of take that piece of reevaluation. And I've actually had clients come to me and they've been able to, with, working with me over a couple of sessions and really thinking about what they do want, have had that turning point where they realize that they just need to re-level themselves, and they actually want to stay together. And families have had that opportunity to spend more time with their kids because they're not traveling for work as much, and giving them the support they need through COVID. And I would say that that's happened in a lot of the co-parenting families that I work with. You've got kids that are all of a sudden having to homeschool. So who's set up the homeschooling? Are you both doing that? Can you both afford a computer? Does the computer go back and forth? And so I've had clients come to me saying, this is the situation. We're co-parents. We're trying to do the best we can for our kids. COVID has thrown this complete wrench into it. So again, it's just making the family and ensuring the family's feeling good about setting the kids up for success. And so if there's one household that has the computer and the desk and the child is feeling super comfortable there, rather than having to haul it all back, with the back and forth and try and keep it even, how do you set them up for success and then carve out different times? So if they're set up for success for school at dad's house, how does mom carve out the time in a different way? And so it's given families a lot of ways to look at possibility and think outside the box. And I think that's because they've had to, come out of that routine of going to work, come home, drive to activities, come home, go to bed, rinse, repeat. So so I am seeing a lot of that too.
I've read something not too long ago, but they were saying is the rise in domestic violence at home because some people can't leave. They're again they're afraid of tearing apart a family. Where they're going to go live? You
Yeah.
know, the one income, one stream right now, revenue stream. So
Yeah.
it's tough. And what do people do in situations like this to get out of a toxic relationship, a marriage, and still be able to maintain? Because no parent wants to put their kids through any trauma for the
Yeah.
most part. How do people deal with that situation?
Well, that's a loaded
It is a
situation,
loaded one, but in some
but
circumstances,
but shift gears from the co-parenting. You're absolutely right. Um, there is a lot of conflict leading to violence, and I'm sure you've seen in the news. There's, what is trying to be brought to the forefront is the aspect of coercive control, and so COVID has not only amplified that ability for those perpetrators to truly um, continue with their coercive controlling tactics, but it's also there's a bit of a spotlight on it now because there has been that shift. And so, you know, what I would say is, to those people, in that situation, you are not alone. There are so many resources out there. You don't have to stay. You can build a plan. I've had situations with clients where we have built their exit strategy and ensured that they've had the right um, plan in place for their own safety, for their kids' safety. And really, the aspect of violence in the home is already traumatic for kids because they feel it, they see it, they know it. They may not be able to articulate it, but emotional violence, verbal abuse is the same as physical abuse. And when that is happening in a home, the best thing to do again is if you have it in you to ask for help, and you let your kids know that things aren't okay, but you're working towards things being okay. And if there's ways that you aren't feel safe, we've got to talk about it. I mean, this is a loaded topic,
oh,
and
for sure, and we could go
but
on
I
for
think
hours on this. Yeah.
hours. But yes, you're absolutely right. There has been a tremendous increase in domestic violence, and it is really hard for people when they're overwhelmed with the fear of leaving. What might happen? How do we do this financially? And we are in a city where we're lucky that there are resources out there, and yes, they are full. I mean, on any given night, there's thousands of children and women turned away from domestic violence shelters, but we're working towards creating more of a unified system. And I speak to that because my past life is with the Canadian Women's Foundation, where we worked on mitigating domestic violence through funding programs. But there's a groundswell of individuals that are really trying to shed light on coercive control, domestic violence, what that means and what that looks like, and where you can ask for help. And so I remain hopeful that the word keeps continuing to get out there. And then with with the kids, yeah, divorce is traumatic. Violence in the home is traumatic. Absolutely. If a child does not feel safe at home, that is number one that we need to deal with. And so there's so many different ways that can be um, supported. Even if you have no one in the city, there are, again, ways we can plan out, ways you can talk to your kids so that kids need three things: love, safety, belonging. They don't necessarily need that from the traditional family unit. They need it from a person, they need it from a system. So if you can provide your child with that wraparound aspect of love, safety, and belonging, that those trauma wounds, albeit they're dressed properly. I always say that, when I have clients come to me and say, I don't want to get divorced, or my spouse is really aggressive with me and it's starting to affect my kids. There's going to be a wound. And we all have wounds. Even if you come from a family that is
Of
traditional,
course.
there's always going to be wounds. It's really how you dress the wound. Um, and I truly believe that when you provide your kids in any situation with, I mean, yes, of course, if you have to escape for safety reasons, please reach out. But in terms of philosophically providing them with that healing from trauma and the love and the safety and the belonging, there's lots of ways to do that, even with just words.
No, that's for sure. You see a lot of extramarital or infidelity going on, and when that is happening, how do families find a way to go their own ways in peace? Because of course, clearly on both ends somebody's been hurt, and
Yeah.
it's not a pretty sight for anybody from an affair
No.
standpoint or
Yeah, it really is. So I guess I would boil it down to this. And again, there are so many reasons for infidelity, so many reasons why there are cracks in a foundation of a relationship. Um, and if you're approaching the situation, whether, for example, if your spouse has been participating in an extramarital affair, the marriage is ending, you feel so much resentment, so much shame, so much fear of the future, so much anger. The best thing you can do is get support for yourself so that you don't, and educate yourself on what it means to put your kids in the middle, and really think through that lens of putting your kids' best interest at heart, at the front, always, as difficult as that is. And people don't even really realize that they do it. And I was working with a client this week who is, they have every right to be as angry and frustrated as they are, but she actually came to me more from a sort of, let's think, as a thinking partner, to think through the negotiations. And we ended up really talking about the emotional piece and helping her understand that the words that she's using is immediately putting the kids in the middle. And how do we extract them from the middle and get support for ourselves and protect them from what's really going on? And then I would say on the other side, it's the same. You've decided you want to end the marriage. You've obviously participated. You're obviously with somebody else. Presenting that concept needs to be a unified front and approach with your spouse and your co-parent, because no matter what, if your relationship has ended, it has not ended with your children, and you are still a family. And this is what I often say to clients: you have got to remain parents. You are still a family to the kids. It just looks different. It's not broken. It's not non-traditional. It's not, these words that people use. There's 50% of families at least are going through divorce. So you've got to maintain your ability in the best way possible that you can to create that sense of family. And even if it is a super high conflict situation and you're parallel parenting, which means, you're kind of doing your thing and the other parent is doing their thing, when they're doing something that you think is ridiculous or the kids are complaining about, it's again looking inward, taking that pause and saying to yourself, this isn't the kid's fault. The kids didn't ask for this. We're still co-parents. They still love mom or dad as much. I've got to frame this so that I don't appear needing help or showing them frustration, that I'm going to deal with it as an adult. You don't worry about it as kids. And thank you for the information. It's going to be okay. Let's go get a snack.
oh yes, I love that. No, that's a great way. Now, there's cultures and the fear of what other people will think, judgment, to leave a relationship. Oh, we're gonna ruin our friend circle. What is our family gonna think? How have you seen people find a solution, to be open with the world and say, okay, we're going to be going our own way, but we're going to find a way to do it amicably.
Yeah, it's yeah, it's tough. And I think there is no doubt, no matter how amicable you are, friendships change. When you get divorced, friendships change. And it sheds light on the relationships that you're carrying. And as you put it forward, as the, even if you're amicable, what divorce does is it tends to shine a light on what's happening in other people's kitchens, so to speak. And so those kind of friendships, if people don't want to face what's really going on in their own reality, or not ready to, I should be more respectful, of course, some don't want to, some aren't ready to, it shifts a bit of a friendship dynamic. I've seen it go really, really well, and I've seen it go really, really sideways. And I think the best thing I would say on the flip side, if your friends are presenting an amicable divorce, you leave it up to them how they want to handle a situation, and you remain as neutral as you possibly can, in the way that you don't, you're supporting both. You can listen to both, invite both to a party, and let them handle it. And it's up to the couple as well. Again, if they're choosing to do this in an amicable way, then they have to be able to face that. And we're in Calgary. It's a small city. You see people all the time. You run into people all the time. And so you're going to run into your former spouse. You're going to be invited to the same parties if you were together for a long time. But also, there is a way to say to your friends, please carry on. It's going to be okay. And we'll let you know if we're not comfortable, or even on the flip side, hey, I really just need a friend right now. I know you're neutral, but, is it okay if I just kind of chat? And if it turns into too much airing of dirty laundry, then you kind of say, you know what? I don't think this is helping either of us. Maybe you need someone more professional to talk to rather than me trying to be neutral. And then there's just natural gravitation. If there's friendships that sort of started out as one side, they'll end up as one side. Right? There's
That's how
just
it works. It's the
natural.
world. Yeah. Do you,
Yeah,
do you see couples, once they're divorced or separated, um, come back together? Because sometimes you need that time apart.
I do. I do. I always, yeah, I do. I know of a couple that got back together, completely reframed how they approached their marriage after, I believe it was 6 or 8 years. And they separated. I'm not sure if they actually facilitated through the divorce process, but they definitely separated. And when they got back together, they stayed in their two separate homes. Their kids were grown and gone, their grandparents, and they love having their own space, but they're still together. And so they've reframed it. And I find that so inspiring, because we do tend to follow this norm of how it's supposed to look. And um, and I often challenge my clients to really think about, okay, separation, two families, kids, what are all the possibilities
Mhm.
of what it can look like for you? And but yeah, so to answer your questions, yes, I've seen people get back together. I've had just a client recently again who sort of, they separated for a little while. We worked together, and they had some true aha. She had some true aha moments that she reintroduced to her husband, and they realized that these little kind of, tension points, I guess, so to speak, needed to just be looked at and have a perspective shift. And it worked. And so I do see that. And it's wonderful, because I think ultimately people really get what they really truly personally need heard. And I often say to my clients too, if you're not listening, you're never going to be heard. And so to take that space and time and just decompress and then reapproach the situation and learn how to um,
See the
learn.
other side and
Yeah,
a different perspective. And sometimes it's not easy. It's you're pulling hair to. I
no.
don't see their side. I don't see their angle. But no, you
And
give
you
it
can
some time.
say to, but what helps is if you even say, I hear you, I feel what you're saying. I don't agree with it, and that's okay. I see it differently. And so let's put how you see it and even write it down or reflect back. So it's there in the air. It's not you, it's not them, it's right there in the air. And then allow yourself to frame how you see it. And then you put that between you, and that's how you come together to realize that perspectives are different on situations, on feelings, on parenting, on finances. But when you just kind of put it in front of you, it's a very healthy and helpful tactic, and can recover some relationships. I did a family communications facilitation session for an entire afternoon with a mother and a father and a son who really needed, no, they were at a standstill. Nobody wanted to listen to the other person, and the moment one person would speak, the other would get defensive. And so we we basically drew, we had a game set up. I was like, okay, when he's coming out and he's playing offense and he's talking, you're on the defense over there, you're feeling yourself on the defense, but that doesn't mean you're in action yet. You can write down how you feel, but first you're going to validate and hear and reflect back what he said. Then you're going to take a pause, and then you're going to respond. And 9.9 times out of 10, a person goes, well, oh, okay, I see how you see that now. And I really realize I'm speaking with emotion, not with fact. And so there's a lot of issues in relationships as it relates to purely communication. And so with the couples that I have seen come back together, it's communication.
For sure. What is the importance of writing things down? You know, we hear that often. Get it out of your head. Put it on paper.
I am the world's biggest fan of writing it down. Right. And I say that to my kids often. I've got a 12, 13, 14, and 16-year-old in the house. And I say to them, you've got, if you think of something, you write it down. If you think of something at night that's giving you anxiety, write it down. If you have a feeling about a friend, write it down. Then put it away, bring it back, see if it's still true, and then let's talk about how you can take that and talk to your friend or teacher or whoever. um, and two, it's, if someone says to you, like if I said to you, Zach, I really feel that you've been super aggressive in this podcast, which is completely the opposite. But you'd be like, what? I'm
Yeah.
not aggressive. You're aggressive. And it's like, okay,
And then,
okay. So you would say to me, Heidi feels that I'm aggressive. And then it kind of makes your brain immediately go, how so? Rather than, what? Defense. Hey, I'm not aggressive, but like, how so? And and then it opens it up. And so, and it helps you remember too. And I believe in couples too. If you've got something, and my husband will laugh because I'll say, okay, so is this how we're doing it now? And he's like, do you want to write that down? And I'm like, well, I kind of do, because if we've decided that we only want the kids to empty the dishwasher, then when it's sitting there for 2 days and no one's emptied it, and I go and empty it, and you tell me that the kids are going to do it, well, how are we going to do this? So we're going to write down, the kids are going to empty the dishwasher. Oh, okay. We're going to put a schedule together. And then all of a sudden, rather than like, well, you told me the kids were going to do it. Well, I said the kids, well, why don't you go ask the kids? Well, I want to ask the kids. They're going to be like, I don't want to. I'm just going to do it. That's kind of what happens in any scenario that causes, and then that immediately causes the resentment that builds. As simple as that is, that's what causes build. So if you can write it down or say it out loud and let it hang, it really does help you go, how so? Okay, wait, if we're going to say the kids have to do it, maybe we should put a schedule together. Okay, I will take Sundays. I will always do Sundays, but everyone else is doing every other day. And then all of a sudden there's a system and everyone's at peace. And so,
That's a
yeah.
good way to look at it. Yeah.
Pardon?
I said that's a beautiful way to look at it, right? Keep everyone tame. I think
Yeah.
it's when you start looking into it, it's like, what the heck?
So that, but yes, and that is not necessarily a crack in the foundation of the relationship, but it's an issue with that person's self-esteem and their self-confidence in themselves. Jealousy like that. Um, yeah, you're feeling like when you're saying you used to do that, but that you don't do that with me, that's something that you're that less than feeling comes from within. And so when you bring that to a relationship, um, that little nugget of insecurity, it can definitely build if that that time isn't taken to reflect within and do your own work, um, because that is really something that is yeah,
It's,
that's within you. And so where
it's
did
not
that
the
come?
other person, and it's I think it's a toxic trait someone could have, right? You'll just eat yourself alive, and that relationship will perish if you don't. It's about nurturing a relationship, not. And you know what? Sometimes the time is up, and that's okay too, right? When it's over, it's over.
When it's over, it's over. And I think it gives you, so then take that opportunity
Hmm.
and it's hard for people to be honest with themselves and look within. It's really, really hard. It's not easy. And there's so much out there talking about it. You've got Brene Brown, you've got Glennon Doyle, who are all incredible, and I worship them. But that work, they're not joking when they say it's hard. And so it is really hard to look inside, be vulnerable, and see those nuances of insecurities that you have that you're bringing into a relationship, or past traumas that are bringing, obviously
That's what
there
you
might be
wonder.
some feelings of rejection with someone who, that you used to do that with your ex and you don't do that with me. That's coming from a place of insecurity. And
What is
so,
that insecurity? Because I'm trying to figure out what that person, and I mean, people, again, everybody's different, but like what that person may be thinking, like, or asking certain questions about the past that, again, we always hear it, it's irrelevant. It's, no one needs,
yeah.
because you talk about the past. I don't know if that's healthy. I think you can dabble, but I don't think you need to dive deep into details because that could be a little much for people.
Well, of course, yeah. There's only so far that you need to go out of respect, but also, I think insecurities come from a million different places. It stems back, and I'm not a psychologist,
Yeah.
but if I can speak from a place where I know I've done my own work
Hmm.
and look back on a lot of the insecurities I carried before. And really, quite frankly, I thank my divorce for giving me, shedding a light on some areas that I chose to work on. And so it takes a lot of deep diving into your upbringing, how you were raised, who you were around, what happened in your childhood, who your friends were, and how your relationships went in the past, or how your parents' relationship was. What were the examples of healthy relationships for you? And it's funny. I've got two sort of quick anecdotes. We talk so much in our household because of what I do, but also we've got teenagers and relationships and teaching them about what a healthy relationship is. And I had to take my mom to a doctor's appointment this morning, and I was telling her about that, and she's like, holy crap, it's amazing that anybody turned out after our generation, because we would never even think about having that conversation. And so I had to figure out what a healthy relationship was all on my own. Now I'm articulating that, and I'm hopeful that um, it perpetuates through the generations. But I think you have to really look inward and do that honest work. And you know it was my stepson's, my bonus son, I call him. It was his 16th birthday. My husband and I were over at his mom and her partner's home for dinner, all of us.
Oh my.
And we've got to that place where it's A, about the kids, and B, we've all moved on, we've all grown, we've all done the work, and we can sit around and be that blended family. And my husband and his former spouse were sharing a laugh about a story, that's something that happened early
Right.
on. And I was like, oh, I'm at the point, I'm sure I had a point years ago where I was probably feeling like, oh God, maybe he still loves her. But
Oh, the
now
insecurity, right?
the insecurity, but now I'm so comfortable and confident in what we've built, and then what we've built from a blended perspective, that I couldn't wait to hear the funny story. And so I think it is that really truly taking the time to think about, even again, let's go back to it, writing it down. When something makes you feel jealous, or jealousy, resentment, shameful, fearful, what is it? And what's on the other side of that? What are you scared of? What's bringing shame? What are you scared of? And then it can shine light on what's actually happening in the relationship, like you said, and perhaps that's not where it's supposed to be. I mean, if your partner's talking tons about their ex
Maybe.
and not spending time with you, then something's not right there.
No, for sure. There's got to be a fine line, and I think that's gut instinct. That's you know when you know, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Now, if someone wanted to get a hold of you, Heidi, how do they do so? And what are some of the things that you could help individuals with or couples with as they're going through these times?
So my website, HeidiDinning.com, has my contact information. Email or text or phone is all there. And typically what I do is people can reach out to me anytime through that. And I do about a 30-minute discovery session, where individuals will share with me where they're at and what they're thinking about. And then on the flip side, I, based on what they've told me, talk about how I can support. And then we decide if we want to work together. Um, and so how I can help, the way that I describe what I do and what I've built, and how I'm trained, is I help I am your thinking partner, right from either contemplation of divorce or separation, reaching that breaking point, or that point has been reached for you, all the way through, right through the continuum of
Wow.
building your blended family. And the co-parenting piece is a large chunk of that, the communications with former spouses. I mean, I talk an easy game. There's a lot of high conflict communication that I deal with. And so everything from emotional support, thinking partner, walking beside, processing your feelings, looking inward, getting organized for your divorce, that's extremely daunting. And so I help clients get themselves organized, preparing for meetings with lawyers, financial planners if needed, making sure that you have all the right questions, ensuring that you understand the process that you're about to face, right to evaluating possibilities for how your living situation and logistics are going to change, how to talk to your kids, what the language is. So really, again, going back to that true continuum of the change that you're facing with separation and divorce, all the way to the possibility on the other side, is really what I support. And like I said, I walk beside my clients. I call myself a thinking partner for them. I try to make myself as available as I can be for those tough moments. You get a crappy text at 10 o'clock at night from your former spouse. Do you want to respond? You feel like responding right away, send it to me and I will talk you out of your tree and we'll deal with it in the morning. Or if it's an emergency, of course, we're going to respond. But I really believe in that support that people need in those non-traditional moments, that you can't wait for your therapist or you can't wait for your lawyer meeting. You just need that person right there in the moment to help you move out of the moment and forward.
Mhm. How
So
did you trick your mind or train your mind to not react so quickly to things? You know, oftentimes people do that. They're reactive.
I'm a human being, Zach. I still react,
Okay.
but I do. You just take that pause and take a huge deep breath. And then sometimes, like I said, separate yourself and the person from the words and just take those few seconds to gain perspective and manage yourself. Everyone has a visceral reaction. So no one's brain, your logical and your emotional brain, when you're hit with an emotional trigger, all the blood flows into your emotional brain and you get defensive and you see red. I mean, that's why they say you see red, because you turn red. To allow yourself to know and be conscientious of your own body and response, to know that you need a few minutes just to calm for a second, to actually think through what you're going to say, honestly, it's a superpower. And I wish, as I said, I think I wrote one of my blogs, it's like, it's amazing how I was taught Pythagorean's theorem in school, but I've never used it. But no one actually taught us how to manage our emotions and respond appropriately, and know that reaction and response are two different things. And no one's going to die if you don't respond or react and respond right away, if it's a situation where it's just high conflict. So it takes training. It's not easy. And let me
Not
tell you,
easy.
I mean, I can preach all you want, but I still get triggered. I got teenagers in the house, and let me tell you, they know how to push my buttons.
Thank you again, Heidi, for today. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thanks. This
Yeah,
has been great. I really appreciated the conversation. You had some
sure.
great questions.